What's up? What's happening, Steeler Nation, man? Welcome to the latest episode of Terrible Towel Tuesday. I am your host, SimFBallCritic, live from the Steel Basement. But actually, I am not live. This is a premiere. Yes, this is a premiere. I almost got you guys. I am not live, even though you're seeing it at the right time. Unfortunately, I was unable to bring you a live broadcast. Got some things going on, man. And just to let you guys know that, I'll bring you up to speed really quick. Unfortunately, man, my father has some surgery he has to get on Wednesday morning. I am going down to Virginia on Tuesday, which is the day that you guys are seeing this. So earlier today, if I'm speaking in the future, in the past, earlier today, driving down, and I will be in Virginia by the time you see this. This is being recorded on Monday night. And apologize for that, guys. But listen, you guys always know you got to take care of your family. I got to go be with my father and make sure he's okay. And it's just been kind of rough the last couple days. My young son, man, has the flu. His temperature's shot all the way up to 104. He's doing good now. His temperature's pretty much back to normal, but it's been quite a weekend. You guys know last Tuesday I was a little under the weather, right? And I think maybe I had the flu. Because now my wife is feeling the effects of it as well. All crazy, man. But I appreciate you all bearing with me, hanging in there with me, man. And I promise we'll get back live to you hopefully next week. And of course, then hopefully we'll be able to do the steel table where I have my good brother Kenyon come on, Debbie's coming on, and whoever else might be in attendance. But let's get into it, man. I'm going to kick it off with a couple quick topics, man, and then we'll be out of here. I want to talk a little bit about, some of the reports that we're hearing, not necessarily reports, but some of the information that we're getting in regards to Art Rooney II. Sat down with Bob Labriola of Steelers.com, and I'm just going to read a couple things, a couple sections of things that he talked about, which I'm sure would be important to us as well, and then I'll discuss them a little bit, and then we'll talk a little bit about the offensive coordinator search so far. So let me just get here to my notes, and I'm really just going to read a lot of this stuff verbatim. So give me a second. Let me get to it. So as we know right now, the Pittsburgh Steelers are in their off season, so there's a couple questions I'm sure that came up. One in which would be the playoffs, in the drought, in the playoffs. The Pittsburgh Steelers right now are 0-5 in the playoffs ever since their last appearance in the playoffs, or their last win in the playoffs, which came all the way back in 2016 against the Kansas City Chiefs. Picture this. Most of you guys remember how long Patrick Mahomes has been playing for the Chiefs. Seems like it's been a long time, even though it hasn't been that long. But either way, to make my point, the last time the Pittsburgh Steelers won a playoff game, it was in Kansas City, and it was not against Patrick Mahomes. Go figure. Was not against Patrick Mahomes. So yeah, it's been that long. But let's read here, man, what was said by Art Rooney II. Sorry about that. Excuse me, guys. Let me read it here. Let me find the information. And this is coming from Bob Labriola. Hopefully I'm saying your name correctly, Labs. He says, Art Rooney II on urgency for the Steelers to win in the playoffs. He basically said, we have had enough of this, okay? It is time to get some wins. It's time to take these next steps, and there's some urgency there for sure. So he basically said that. Mark Caboli also said a couple things here. He says, Art Rooney on the playoff futility. He says, we had enough of this. It's time to make the next steps. He also said he didn't believe in Mike Tomlin, that Tomlin wouldn't be here and would make a change. And I think that Mark Caboli was being funny there. Let me see this. I don't know. Maybe he wasn't. But even if you think that's true, then I'm going to come back and say to you exactly what he did have to say about Mike Tomlin. But overarching point, he basically said, we've had enough of this. It's time to make some next steps. He's tired of the drought, as am we. As are we, right? We as the fans. We as the core fan base who love the Pittsburgh Steelers, have been diehard fans. I know most of us have. I know, every now and then you're going to get some bandwagon folks. But if you're like me and you've been a lifelong Pittsburgh Steelers fan, And like I said, the highlight of my Pittsburgh Steelers fanism, would probably span, I would say, the Ben Roethlisberger era. And the reason why I say that is just being honest. I'll give you this perfect example. This is a sidebar, but I don't know if you guys know who Country Wayne is. He's a comedian. I happened to watch some of his interview on Shaq's podcast, and Shaq said, "How long have you been a Cowboy fan?" He said, "Man, all my life, but die hard probably the last 15 years." Perfect way to explain what I'm about to say here. I've been a Steelers fan since I was a little boy, right? However, when you were younger, at least me, I wasn't as passionate and as into it as I am now. Where I really was paying attention, where I really learned the full staff and learned all of the players and learned the ins and outs and learned the Steeler way and learned the business. No, I didn't really get into that until I got older. So that's why I always say the Ben Roethlisberger era probably was the meat of my hardcore fanism, right? And it goes before Ben, because I was around for the Tommy Maddox thing as well. But right around a couple years or so before Ben was drafted was when I really started paying attention. And because at that time I wasn't even aware of Ben Roethlisberger in college. I didn't really know much about him. I just knew I wanted to see a different quarterback outside of a Tommy Maddox, right? I had seen Cordell Stewart, and Cordell Stewart was what he was, but I just was ready for another quarterback. So once we drafted Ben Roethlisberger, I was curious to see who this guy was. He came in and he was able to win all of these games early. I know, heavily aided by the defense. He was able to get a Super Bowl early, and then, we were off and running. But I would say most of my hardcore, diehard fanism would probably be around that time, man, in 2002, like I said, a little bit before Ben. So for most of us, we've been able to, fortunately enough, we've seen a Super Bowl or two, right? We've seen 2 Super Bowl wins. We've seen 3 Super Bowl appearances. So that's why we have such lofty expectations as Steelers fans, right? A lot of us are spoiled. Then we have a lot of our older fan base who remember seeing, even in the Bill Cowher era, before Bill was able to get that Super Bowl, some of those bad losses in the championship games, some of those losing seasons, right? And some of the Steelers fans were tired of seeing that, and then we changed gears, and Cowher got himself one. Tomlin came in a couple years later. He was able to get one, and we've been riding high since then, right? And then you have a lot of some of our older fan base who remember the worst part of Chuck Noll's tenure. Not the dynasty, not the 70s, but they're talking about the times when the Steelers were not good. So I say all that to say, and I got a little long-winded there. Listen, it's been a long time for most of us. We expect to get to the playoffs. We expect our team to at least make some type of run in the playoffs, get to the second round at least, and I mean from a win, because we technically got to the second round against the Jaguars a few years back. Y'all remember that one? But we had a bye. So technically that wasn't us getting there. We earned that position. So it's definitely time, man, to see not only, of course, a Super Bowl win, not only that, but a playoff win, a real run where you could, say, like yesterday, we saw a couple teams lose that we could say, yeah, they might be back. We haven't been able to say that about the Steelers in quite some time. So there you have it. So yeah, he's fed up just like the rest of us. So let me move on to a couple of other things here. Quite a few things, man, came out of what's being reported. I don't believe that interview is available where you can actually hear it. So I just have to go off of articles that are posted. Shout outs to Steelers Depot, man. I'll always give them love here on this show. I appreciate them for what they do. I've conversed with them quite often on Twitter, and shout outs. Alex Kazua sometimes have stopped by. So we salute you, Steeler Nation. Thank you for giving us this material that we could discuss. The next thing that he talked about is, this is an interesting one. It says Steelers owner Art Rooney II believes Mike Tomlin can win another Super Bowl. So let's read what he said about Mike Tomlin. Per Bob Labriola, Art Rooney said the players still respond to Mike, and that's the number one thing. Says he keeps the attention of 20-year-olds for a whole season, and he keeps them in the fight the whole way. He said, if I didn't feel Mike could lead us to a championship, he wouldn't be here. That is what he said. That is what he said. So they still believe in Mike Tomlin. Also, we saw other reports that came out after Mike Tomlin's last, the season-ending press conference. Art Rooney as well came out and he said that they will be extending Mike Tomlin and it will get done. That's basically what he said. So we know as much as of now that, as expected, Mike Tomlin will be extended at some point, and they believe in Mike Tomlin still. So like I said, I don't know what Mark Caboli was saying there. He may have been, that may have been a tongue-in-cheek type of, trolling type of comment, but clearly Art Rooney has just told Bob Labriola that they still believe in Mike Tomlin. They believe in the fact that he can keep the team together and get what he gets out of these guys, and they do believe that he can win another Super Bowl. And I just want to say a side note, man, this is something that I've been saying to you guys as well. Read through the tea leaves, right? Not only does Mr. Rooney believe Mike Tomlin might be the guy to get them to another Super Bowl or win another Super Bowl, but it's what I said also earlier in the season. Listen, you may have your opinions about Mike Tomlin. That's fine. Some of you guys love him. Some of you guys hate him. That's fine. I'm not here to debate that. But what I always say, you have to look at the business side of these things. The business side. We look at everything from a fan side, but what about the business aspect? And what does a coach like Mike Tomlin allow the Steelers continue to do? Be relevant. Be relevant. They still sell tickets. They're still in the conversation. That means ching, 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 right? It's a business at the end of the day. It's a business. So maybe Art Rooney will never tell us that, but it's a business at the end of the day. Nobody wants to be the laughing stock of the league when you win in two games a season or 3 or 4 games a season. It's not good for business. So for those who feel like, what difference does a no losing record mean when we're not getting to the mountaintop? I agree with you from a success story standpoint. But when you're talking about the success of the business monetarily, not having a losing season keeps butts in the seats, keeps hope alive, and keeps the cash register ringing. That's just the facts. It's just the facts. All right, so let's get to the next thing that he talked about. Let's see, moving right along. Next thing that he was asked about was Kenny Pickett. Let's read this one. He says, on Kenny Pickett, Art Rooney says, we need to do everything we can to make sure we get quality play out of the quarterback position going forward with Kenny. And he basically said Kenny needs to work. He needs to work hard and take the next step. One of the things we liked about Kenny out of Pitt is that he took a step every year. We're looking forward to that. And this is what he told the fan. Excuse me. What he basically told Labriola. He also talked about Mason Rudolph. He says Mason Rudolph came in and showed what we're capable of when we have quality QB play, and we're interested in bringing Mason back. So again, that's no secret there. We already know, Mike Tomlin came out and said we would love to have Mason Rudolph back. But now you're hearing from Art Rooney as well. And, Art Rooney is basically saying, listen, they know that Kenny Pickett, they know that he has a lot of work to do. All right? And he's basically saying what I said at the end of the season, what I said in the midpoint of the season. They're definitely not giving up on their draft pick. Not yet. But he's echoing what Mike Tomlin said. Listen, we think that we can still get something out of him, but it is going to be up to him. So if you read between the lines, listen, we're going to bring in a new OC. You have competition now. We're bringing back Mason Rudolph. You have competition. We won't hesitate to pull. That's how I translate that. We won't hesitate to pull you if you're not playing up to snuff by a certain point of the season, because we saw what Mason Rudolph was able to seemingly do. but they're definitely going to give Kenny the best opportunity to remain QB1. It will be up to Kenny if he keeps that spot. It's just that simple. All right, so the last thing, man, and the final thing we'll talk about. Sorry, guys, man. I'm still having some after effects of my illness. Last thing we'll talk about, and the most important, is offensive coordinator. So I like what Art Rooney had to say about that. He basically said, let me find the clip here. Said a couple things. He says, although he is part of the interviewing process, the offensive coordinator hire will be the decision of Mike Tomlin. He says it would be a mistake for me to try to screw up the lines of authority. So he's basically saying it will solely be on Mike Tomlin, even though he'll be a part of the process, saying that he hasn't been in communication with him, as well as been in communication with Omar Khan. And Mike Tomlin said the three of them will converse and make the proper decisions, but the decisions will be on Mike Tomlin. He also said here, so the Steelers are looking for an OC who can work with the players already assembled, pointing out you can't completely change a roster overnight, so you have to have a coordinator who can work with the roster and be successful. And that's what it's all about, man. Isn't that what we talked about when we talked about Matt Canada? We understand that Matt Canada, man, even when Ben Roethlisberger was still there, an aging Ben, a Ben that no longer can move, but you have to be able to work within the confines of the players you have available. We talked about that with Matt Canada solely having Kenny Pickett, a guy he was familiar with. We talked about that this season, all right? Before Matt Canada was relieved of his duties. And then you see guys like Sullivan and Eddie Faulkner come in and they get the best out of what they can get from Mason Rudolph. You know, there was still a game or so while we were winning. There was still a game or so I didn't like some of the approach. But in those games that we were winning, they were putting a good formula together, working with the playbook that was there, utilizing the personnel, and getting what they could get out of those guys. And that's how it has to be. A coordinator has to adapt. If you have to be able to put your plan in place based on the talent you have on the roster and utilize your personnel to the best of its ability, providing your quarterback with what he needs in terms of his skill. How does it match your philosophy? And then utilizing the skill position players. That's how it has to be. So I fully agree with that statement. And hey, listen, there are a couple of guys that have their name in the pot. You know, I'm going to be honest with y'all. I'm not so familiar with a lot of these guys in terms of what they bring to the table because I usually don't know much about coaches outside of the head man. But, you know, a few names that we know right now that the Steelers have interviewed is Arthur Smith, former Falcons coach, Carolina Panthers, Thomas Brown, and Houston's Jared Johnson. Now, like it says in the title, there's one common theme that I'm seeing out of these offensive coordinator candidates that I like a lot. Common theme. And that would be youth. Youth with experience. Okay? Thomas Brown, I believe I saw that he was 36 years old. I think Gerard Johnson is 35. Even Arthur Smith is one of the older, but he's 41 years old, right? And then there's guys like, hold on. I know a lot of people are trying to hold out and for hope and hope that a guy like Clint Kubiak would be a guy that the Steelers would look at, you know, currently with the 49ers, if I'm not mistaken. He's 36 years old. You see what I'm saying? So I love that common theme of youth, infusing some youth into the Steeler organization in a position where there's some authority there. Whether that's the offensive coordinator or pass game coordinator, quarterback's coach, all of that. I like the fact that we're going after youthful guys. And Mike Tomlin talked about he wants to see a guy with versatility and a guy that's dynamic. So interesting fact, I saw Alex Kazor put out a report basically saying that, you know, Arthur Smith might not be the quote-unquote sexy favorite. However, he said he's quite the fit for the Pittsburgh Steelers, but there are some things that they're concerned about in his previous work. Of course, he's known mostly for his years in Tennessee and what he was able to get out of that offense, with Ryan Tannehill and Derrick Henry. But, it said that he relies heavily on bigger packages in terms of 13 personnel, 21 personnel, 12 personnel, and they run a lot of zone running schemes. Well, the only issue with that is we all know, if you paid attention, Steelers didn't do as well when they ran zone type blocking. It was more when they ran gap or power type of runs was when our run game started to perk. So the question, of course, would be is, would Arthur Smith come in if he were to be hired and try to run that same philosophy? That's the only question. Again, maybe he can adapt. Maybe he has different plans based on his personnel. But again, if you're judging him from when you knew he was the main guy offensively in Tennessee, and I'm assuming he called plays as well as Atlanta. I don't know. But there were some numbers out there as well that suggested how much they ran zone in Atlanta and how much they ran. Alex Kazua said earlier today on their podcast, today is Monday. I was about to think it was Tuesday. See, even I don't know. It ain't Tuesday, even though I'm recording Turbo Down Tuesday. See, my mind is all over the place. But yeah, listening to their podcast today, man, they said that they were 32nd in running 11 personnel. Speaking of Atlanta, this past season. Now, for those of you that don't know, that's when you have 3 wide receivers, a tight end, and a running back. That's crazy. That's crazy. So it lends to what I just said. They look more for those heavy packages, and they run a lot of zone blocking as opposed to gap runs and power runs. So that would be the only concern is, again, when the Steelers tried to do that this past season, didn't bode so well. But when they went back to just being bully ball, pulling guys and running power and wham and things like that, run game took off. But we'll see, so I'll wrap up with this. What I really want to see is a guy that can come in and get what they can get out of Kenny Pickett. It would be a shame for the Steelers. And again, I like to speak in reality. I don't speak on, I hate this guy, I didn't like this guy, or I overly love this guy, because some of y'all thinking Kenny Pickett just going to come in here and he's going to be this outstanding player. Listen, this is what I dislike. I would dislike for the Steelers to have drafted a quarterback in 22, right? I would hate for us to already be looking for another quarterback. And that's regardless of how I feel about Kenny Pickett, whether I hate him or love him. I would hate for us to be already back in a situation where we're looking for a QB. I would love to be able to say there was a success story and Kenny Pickett showed what he was made of in year 3. Yes. I would love to have some type of story. I'll even use Brock Purdy as an example. Yes, Mr. Irrelevant, who's made himself relevant. I would love for Kenny Pickett to become, perhaps a scheme quarterback. And he plays well in the scheme. Even if he isn't the best quote-unquote athletic or, talented QB, I would love to be talking about how well Kenny Pickett bounced back in year 3 with the new OC and how he's leading the Steelers offense. Because I would hate for them to already be back in the market for a quarterback. And that's no shade at Mason Rudolph. But come on, this is the number 1 draft pick. Excuse me. So that's what I'm hoping. We shall see. So whoever that guy is that can do that, bring him on. And I hope the Steelers and Mike Tomlin in particular, I hope you guys stick with the philosophy or the approach that I see that you're taking now, and you're looking for youthful guys, not the old guard. You're looking for youth, the younger guys with fresher ideas. That's what I'm hoping they stick to, and they do not revert back to an older guy, and let's get it done. All right, so that's all I got on that. But hey, outside of that, man, I definitely appreciate each and every one of you tuning in. If you're here at the end of the video, thank you for sticking around with this not being live. I shall be back to you guys shortly. And outside of that, man, before you go, I'm definitely going to remind you, if you haven't already, if you like the video, hit that like button. Like the content, subscribe to the channel. And once you've done that, make sure you turn on that notification bell. Outside of that, y'all know the routine. Stay safe, God bless, stay healthy, good night, and like always, thank you for tuning in to Turbo Towel Tuesday. I shall catch you in the next one. Peace.